Hey guys, Tyler here with Trackman. I'm just going to run through how to take down an existing screen, put up a new one. A couple things you're going to need is just a ladder. I got an 8-footer here, 6-foot or 8-foot, depending on how tall your ceilings are. I'm going to use a tape measure, and everything else I'm going to do with my hands. All right, first thing we're going to do, you'll see at the top of your trim kit and where the ceiling meet, we have these bumpers here. So we're going to go ahead and you can just peel those off. Take that, we'll set those to the side. We're going to reuse those. Next thing we'll do is the top carpet strip going across. Again, that's just the carpet with the Velcro. So we'll go ahead and you can peel that back. Now that'll expose, you'll see the angle iron, your paracord and the actual screen. So we're going to now take off all the sides here, but we'll start with the top here. All right, so we've got the trim pieces all taken off. We got a bare bones now, just how the screen is actually tensioned. First thing I want to do is kind of get a general idea of our gaps right now, because we're going to try to replace the next screen with the same orientation, so all those trim pieces are going to cover like they should. One thing, just this is a good time to make sure that your Velcro that should be covering all the angle iron is still there. When you peeled off your carpet strips, we don't want that Velcro to come off, because when we put a new carpet strip on, it's going to stick on the left and onto the Velcro on the screen here. So we'll go ahead and check how much we have. You can get a pretty rough idea. That's about just over 10 inches. And we'll check our top. All right, so now we are gonna just kind of undo the tension, untie those knots on the sides. On the bottoms, they'll be tied off in the bottom right and bottom left corner. I'm gonna untie those, take out all the bungee there. We're gonna do the sides. We'll leave that paracord up top for the next step so the screen is still upright. Sometimes when you guys get maybe a tight knot, it's actually easier if you actually try to push, if you kind of hold where it's knotted and actually push the bungee through there. It'll start to loosen, and that's a easier way to get that knot out rather than cutting it. So now we've got the tension off all the sides. We've still got our bungee hanging from the top. Now next step, we're gonna go ahead and remove this paracord and the screen. As we start giving it, kind of taking tension away, the screen's going to kind of lower and start falling to the ground. So now the screen is all down on the sides and the top, much like the paracord or the bungee on the sides. The top paracord that's going out the top, I'm going to leave either on the right or left side, whichever way you're going to end. You can go ahead and leave that knot up there. We'll use it again. So screen is down now. I've kind of pulled it flat. This is going to be kind of the same orientation when we take this screen out of here. We're going to put the new one, try to have it in the same spots. I think it would be a really good idea if you wanted to take a picture and kind of see how the tensioning is working from the back of the screen to the D-ring mounting points. And then a big thing is to notice how much of the screen is actually behind this chain and tube, because we want to coincide that next screen with just like we have here. So then our gap from the top of the screen to the ceiling is going to match up with that same trim piece we have. So this will be a good point, maybe take a picture, and I'm going to hit on later in this video how we actually do all this mounting. All right, so now we're actually gonna untie this bungee, the tensioning system back here. You might see it like we have here, kind of zigzagging between these grommets and the D-rings on the back. You also might see a different method where the bungee is actually running through this channel at the back of the screen. Either method works. What it's doing is just keeping the screen tight to the floor and enough of this screen material behind the chain so it doesn't ride up. I would probably recommend whatever you see on your screen now, whatever your installer previously did, I would try to reroute that with the new screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and take out our bungee. All right, so again, much like the sides, this back bungee cord, I'm gonna leave attached to this corner D-ring here because we're gonna reuse this same one. So we can kind of just pile this up in the corner here. You might have some tension tying off the corners. You can go ahead and remove those as well. Okay, so now we've got the screen totally untied. It's loose here. We're gonna take this screen out of here. We're gonna bring in our new one. If you want, you can go ahead and you can loosen your turnbuckle here, which is gonna give you a little bit more slack on this chain and tube to get your new screen under. What you're gonna wanna, if we loosen it, we're gonna have to tighten it again later because we wanna keep this chain pretty tight to the floor, which secures the screen right to your turf. Okay guys, so we've got our replacement screen here. I'm gonna unfold it, put it in the correct orientation. Before we do that, we wanna make sure we've got the turf cleaned up. We have nothing here, so that shouldn't be a problem. But the actual front of the screen is gonna be on the ground while we get the screen all ready. And same way when we took our screen down, we wanna make sure the Velcro's on the sides and across the top. In this instance, it's gonna be facing down, and then that whole channel is gonna be kinda in the back here behind the chain. Okay, so now we're ready to kind of position the screen under the chain. From before, when we took our first screen down, I know the chain was resting kind of right in between the second and third grommet, so I'm gonna try to make that an even dimension across the whole way. So kind of just slowly go and tuck your screen under the chain. And again, this is where loosening your turnbuckle might aid you a little bit, so it's not so tight, so you have some room to work. All right, so now that we've got the screen under the chain and it's centered between the walls, I want to go ahead and re-tighten my turnbuckle. I did loosen it, so I had a little bit of slack to get the screen under. So I want to go ahead and tighten it again. We want to get it pretty tight to the ground, but it doesn't, you don't want to go so hard that it starts to try to pull your walls down. I'm going to go ahead and I want to hold one end of the turnbuckle so it doesn't move and just spin the middle of it. If it's nice and tight, you might want to use a screwdriver or something. You can kind of go in the middle and use leverage and just kind of turn it that way. So that feels pretty good right there. And then I'm just moving over my tube. I kind of want to protect any bit of chain or turnbuckle that's behind the screen. I want to get that tube over it so the ball will kind of absorb that. Okay guys, so now the screen's in a good spot. We're gonna go ahead and recreate what we had earlier. So I'm gonna use this bungee that's in the back corner. I'm gonna hit this grommet here, then go to a D-ring, and I'm gonna evenly tension kind of in that zigzag method. So. One thing to know as I'm kind of sliding across here and worrying about the tension, I do try to keep my kneecaps on the back of the screen just so that screen isn't moving around. The Velcro into the turf does kind of hold it, so it shouldn't move much, but just be cognizant of where your screen's at, because we want to keep that same amount of screen material behind the chain. Okay, so I've got a bungee running through every D-ring and grommet on the back of the screen, pretty loosely, just kind of wanted to get them through each channel. Now I'm going to go back and you're not pulling with all your might. I just kind of want to get each of these bungees pretty much sitting straight. So I'm just going to tighten it until it's pretty much in a straight line like this. And you kind of want to, like you'll see, I'm kind of holding the tension because if you let go, it's going to kind of recoil and lose some of that. And now that we're at the end, just your typical knot will work. This bungee holds knots really well. I'm gonna hold the bungee to the D-ring like that, so it's keeping the tension there. Just a simple loop through. Keep your finger there pretty much the whole time. Put a nice one there, and I'll usually do a double knot. I'll go through the D-ring. Make sure that's nice and tight, and this can kind of just hang out back there. All right, guys, one last step before we actually pick this screen up and get the tensioning. What I want to do is get a piece of bungee cord. You probably had one there. If not, if you have some excess bungee cord, you can use it. We want to really tie off the corner of the screen to this corner of your kind of bay where this D-ring is. What that does is that's gonna keep the tension pulling down and out. So when we're looking at the screen, you get a real nice flush square image and no kind of rippling in the front. Okay guys, so we've got really everything behind the screen is ready to go. We can now kind of lift the screen up, so all the Velcro facing down is going to lift up and be pointing back at you. We'll put those carpet strips on later. I like to pick really whatever corner you want to work with, but I like to kind of give myself a little room because I want to try to place my ladder in this corner. I don't want to set my ladder right on top of the screen, but I don't want to be so far away that I'm, dangerously reaching to the ceiling. All right, so I got my ladder ready to go. I'm gonna grab a little piece of bungee cord. We're gonna just do the top left and right corner. All I'm gonna do is kind of tie this up into the corner so the screen is erect, hanging in the air. It's gonna be loose and droopy, but we just wanna get it in the air so it's easier to work off of. So I'm just pulling on this bungee and kind of watching the side of the screen that has this Velcro on it. Once that's fully off the ground, which it is right now. Once it's kind of a straight line of Velcro like that, that's where I'm trying to tie this off. So we've got the screen hanging now. We're gonna redo the top paracord, which should still be tied off to either your right or left corner. We're gonna go through the grommets, the D-rings, weave back and forth. Like we checked earlier, this is the top carpet strip right at 24 inches. So we wanna be mindful as we tension this that the bottom of this Velcro to the top of this Velcro is at least under 24 inches. So when we put that carpet back up, we don't see any of the hardware. So as I tension, I'm gonna periodically check and make sure we're at the right height. So we're about halfway across here, just kind of taking a little break to see what gap we're sitting at. So 24 is right here. We're about a 3/4 of an inch on the good side, but it is a little close. So I'm gonna keep that in mind. If we're a little low and you need to raise your screen up, obviously we can kind of pull the paracord, and this will pull the screen up. That only goes so far. If it gets to the point where we're pulling too much, the bottom of the screen and the chain will raise up off the turf, which we don't want. So at that point, we would need to loosen the back bungee so there's a little more slack coming off the wall, and we'll pull that slack up towards the ceiling. So we'll keep note of that as we keep going. We want these carabiners to sit pretty evenly in between each of these grommets. We don't really want this carabiner to be directly above. That kind of pulls the tension a little off. If you find yourself when you're putting up your new screen where the old carabiner placement was, you can always move them. This angle iron here has holes in it, so you can kind of feel where a hole is and poke a new one. So if this one was here and I wanted to move it, I could poke a new hole in like that and try to get that sitting in between your grommets. So you guys can see we've got our paracord running all the way across the top. I haven't quite tied it off there, but now I'm going to check. So we want to make sure, because this top carpet strip is 24 inches, I want to make sure that's going to cover past the Velcro. So that's right at about 23, so that's good there. That's a little over 22, so that'll work as well. And that's right at 23. So we're in good shape. The little bit of rippling that you see throughout, once we get the side tension, that's gonna square up and even out. So at least for now, we've got good tension up there. I'm gonna tie off my corner and we'll be ready to work on the sides. Okay guys, so now we're ready to work on the sides. We just want to double check again, make sure we're centered. So our side carpet strips coming in at 12 inches. You can measure, we can also kind of just take a peek here. So that is pretty close. Maybe at times it might even be a little too far apart. So yeah, that's just over 12. Now let's come check out the other side and make sure we're even. A little less room over here. One thing to do before there's any tension, we can kind of shift this screen ourselves. So I'm going to just tug it a little bit this way to try to center this up. All right, so after measuring both sides, we know that the outside of our Velcro is not going to be further than 12 inches off the wall in any spot, so our carpet strips are going to cover. Now it's time to, similar that we did the top, we're going to now just kind of weave carabiner to grommet, back and forth. You don't have to worry about having the tension right. We're really just trying to feed it through here. We'll get the tension afterwards. So we're kind of weaving through this whole way. We're getting down to our bottom corner here. So I'm going to go through my last grommet, and I'm just going to use that same bottom carabiner that the chain is actually tensioned off of. And for now, we're just going to leave it like this. So everything's kind of loose. That's fine. We really just want to get them in their right place. We'll shoot over to the other side and mimic what we have here. Okay, so we've got both of the sides. We've got our bungee running down both sides, kind of terminating at the end here. Before I tie anything off and we get into putting on the carpet strips, we just want to check again. We have 24-inch trim kit on top and we have 12 inches on the side. So I'm gonna go ahead and just check here. So I'm sitting at about 11 1/4. Same thing, 11 1/4, that's really good. Check up top. That's just under 23. That's right at 23. That's right around 23 as well. 2 for 3, we're looking good. That's good, that's at 11 inches. 11 1/4. And that's 11, so we're gonna be good to go. So now we can, I'm just gonna kind of straighten up these bungees a little bit. I don't want to pull it tight. You don't want to pull this thing so hard that, you know, the ball is going to spring back at you. You know, as of now, it's got some nice give to it. I'm just going to real easily kind of straighten up my cords. You see how kind of loopy these are? We'll get them to look just so they're kind of holding their shape, just like that, not pulling too tight. And I'll just tie it off like we have been. So we're gonna go ahead and reapply the border kit, these carpet strips here. You will notice when you look at them, one side it's kind of double layered, one side's kind of the raw edge there that is stitched, and the other side rolls around and has kind of the nice finished edge that's kind of rounded. We always, whether it's the sides or the top, we always want this nice rounded edge pointing either into the screen, or for the top, we want it pointing down. So the actual screen will be bordered with this nice edge, and your sewn edge will always touch the ceiling or the walls. So when we go ahead and put on the sides, I like to start at the bottom. It's much easier to start at the bottom and work your way up. To do that, again, we're gonna have this kind of sewn rough side against the wall. I like to really just focus on getting this corner matching up to that corner there. Try to push this right in there. And then also it's gonna stick onto that Velcro and also the screen Velcro. So now that we're kind of stuck over here, I'm gonna start kind of rolling this up. And really what I'm doing here is really trying to keep this edge next to the wall and kind of try to just kind of push that there. Make sure that's a nice edge. And then as you go, you can kind of smooth out the screen side. If you run into something like this, this actually we'll put on in a bit. If you get yourself where your carpet strip's a little long, rather than cutting it, it's actually a lot easier. These actually fold pretty nicely. That's a little low. I'm gonna try to place make it fold so it hits right at the top. So we're ready now to put up the final top piece of carpet going across here. We've kind of covered up the Velcro in this area. So you should have some of these big pieces of Velcro that were probably either stuck to your side carpet strip or behind the top carpet strip. I'm gonna put one up top so I can kind of keep running this Velcro and one in line with this Velcro here. So put one there, put one here. And same thing we did for the sides. We're gonna go ahead and try to get it right in the corner with the finished side pointing down. Guys, so next step, kind of our last step, we just want to reapply these top bumpers. We're going to do it with there's one Velcro side there. We're going to stick that onto the front carpet strip, kind of right in the corner of the ceiling and the top of the carpet strip. We want to angle it on this kind of orientation so it's pointing down. That hem should be pointing at the turf. I'm just going to kind of get it lined up. Give it a firm push on there. That should stick. We'll move our way down. Once we finish that, it's time to grab a couple clubs and a golf ball, and we're gonna hit some shots into the screen. All right, guys, so the screen's fully mounted and everything, so now we're ready to test. Best way to do this is kind of go through the bag. You can start hitting a few shots with wedges, move into some mid irons, long irons, and then into drivers. You're gonna kind of see how much the ball is coming back off the screen. To relieve some of the bounce back, you can untie your knots on the bungee cords on your bottom right and left. You can kind of feed some of that bungee cord up through the carabiners to relieve some of the tension of the screen. If you're still getting bounce back after that, you can remove a carabiner from your bungee cord, which will loosen the screen a bit. All right, guys, there you have it. That's really the step-by-step process that we Trackman installers use if we were to replace your screen. So you should be in good hands kind of following those steps, working through it. Take you a couple hours, but it's not as hard as it seems. Shouldn't take you long before you have your screen back up and you're using your Trackman simulator again.